Oh, hello again, Virtuafriend. How are you? I took a little vacay last week since the weather was terrible over here. We lost power sporadically, but the neighborhood was okay. Though multiple roads were flooded, I was able to do most of my errands per usual. The annoying part was the loss of internet for hours on end. I had movies I could watch from my personal DVD collection, but my recent catalog over on Letterboxd is only available on streaming services. I mean, it's odd to think about how much of our day-to-day is now dependent on apps and services, not only the internet. Paying bills or scheduling a truck is now all done online through a company's portal or signature cookie-cutter app. You try to call somebody, but you're left with a robotic answer machine, and then you're stuck on hold for hours on end. Our whole life is automated or left up to a server's discretion. Good luck if these services just have a bad day. I mean, sure, a lot of the media we consume now is all digital, and if you throw aside the argument of whether or not you really own it, it's a lot simpler than what was in place not even 10 years ago. Going digital was the idea anyways until this past year. So many minute hiccups are building up day by day. The laziness, ineptitude, and lack of due diligence are a real problem, and none of these big companies are willing to do anything about it. It's all about what will make them and their shareholders happy. And of course, the execs more money. They aren't held to any real standardized law or code of ethics. I mean, come on. Last month, over 3,000 flights were canceled, all because of a computer outage. It also caused chaos for businesses, government agencies, and crucial 911 services. We've built our entire ecosystem around being online and using proprietary software that, when it inevitably fails, nobody knows what to do when they can't access the company's stupid and probably already obsolete tech. The ones at the customer service counter can't help you because anything and everything they need to look up is now on the system. The craziest part to all of this is it wasn't even a cyber attack. Come to find out, it was a defect found in a single constant update for Windows. Yeah, sure. I have a copy you can borrow. No worries. I'll be right back, virtual friend. The other night, I was trying to remember a game from my days on the Windows 98. It's crazy how we don't even Google our questions anymore. We just go to Reddit because we know the community will help out faster than any sponsored ad placement or quote-unquote AI answer. Well, after describing it on r/tip of my tongue, a kind soul told me not only the game's title, but also an archive site called oldgamesdownload.com, where I could download it for free. The site offers abandoned games from the 70s to early 2000s. Think of it like an internet archive, but for video games. Freaking 3D dinosaur adventure. Though it's a goofy point-and-click game with cheesy graphics, I still wanted to play it. I ended up glued to my monitor until 2 a.m. For the most part, I try to support my local stores as much as I can. I love finding old knickknacks like toys from Burger King's Kids Club or other nostalgic memorabilia I used to have as a kid. I got a lot of hand-me-downs growing up since I was the youngest of the bunch, so when I finally got something of my own, I cherished it. Nowadays, trying to find something like a working Furby could cost you anywhere from $50 to $100, depending on the version online. And then, if you try and are actually able to find one in person, the pricing will likely be astronomically high for the sole reason of they have one and you want it. If you go to a retro game store hunting for old and cherished memories, you're in for a rude awakening. Metal Rock Jesus and Kelsey Lewin recently did a YouTube video on the 6 things to avoid when going to retro game stores. And honestly, it barely scratched the surface in my opinion. They go over the craziest things such as price changing once you get to the register. Like you put the game on the counter and the owner says, hold on, and then looks online to see what the game is quote unquote worth, and then ups the price. I would say it's dumb, but I've had this happen more than a fair share of my time. They also go over details like businesses charging full price for a complete game that doesn't have a manual or other papers. Imagine finally finding that game you've been looking for, like for example Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2 for the GameCube. But then you look at the case and it's a pixelated print off. More than a few places, don't even let you open the case. Or they might not even let you see the disc if it's behind the counter. You could just be purchasing like a ripped off version. You may think I'm nitpicking, but have you ever tried to peel off a freaking GameStop used sticker? Those paper-based stickers are the dumbest things, and a lot of stores still use them. The other side of the coin I wanted to go over is a YouTuber by the name of Phoenix Resale. Caleb often travels to conventions to check out the retro collections. He sells bulk retro games to local vendors and audiences, but his main content is interviewing video game store owners he comes across in his travels. In one video, Caleb and his store owner Mark go over the simple stuff like how he started his retro game store business. But there's a few details I specifically wanted to go over. First off, they point out how commendable Mark's N64 collection is. One of the most beloved consoles of all time, and he has maybe 150 so cartridges in the whole store, including multiple copies of the same game. Think of how head-scratching it must be for a store owner to try and supply the most enjoyed titles of all time. The other sore with owning a retro store is you may buy a title for $30 and then sell it for $35 months later. A lot of the more humble places struggle to keep afloat only months after opening. I come across numerous stores dead set on making their prices astronomically high because they believe sooner or later an ignorant buyer is bound to buy it. Their customer service is bad, or heck, a lot of the time their hygiene is worse. I'm not bashing anyone in particular. Well, maybe the Smash community. I mean, the fact of the matter is I've been to too many stores and conventions to expect anything more than a mediocre at best experience. The process is so hit or miss, and I don't have the energy for it anymore. They really need to offer something more than a game to be special and last, you know? It's not about stocking games, it's about systems, special editions, trashy new third-party controllers, plushies, nostalgia bait, magic cards, Pokemon cards, and yes, Funko Pops. We aren't focusing on these anytime today. I mean, I personally like the ones that don't look like regular Pops or like, you know, the Jurassic Park ones. But a lot of them are just a cash grab. If you take one out of the box and you can't recognize it, then that's bad design. But I mean, you know, come on, it's not like these games and systems are going anywhere anytime soon, right? The bulky PS3 offers backwards compatibility through its own emulation, and so does the Xbox 360. These are great options to pick up, for example. I mean, you can play your PS2 games through HDMI and better hardware. The problem is the bulky PS3 is super susceptible to the yellow light of death, aka hardware failure. And that's if you're lucky to find one. It's a ticking time bomb. Xbox players don't even laugh. The 360 was arguably worse with the red ring of death. I've had 4 red rings in my lifetime, and not only on the original system either. And I am a very clean and organized person. A lot of the vendors survive solely off of revamped systems, whether it includes a facelift of the Switch with translucent shells, new sticks to prevent Joy-Con drift, or internal memory cards. Options like a cool Game Boy Color with an internal battery, so instead of AA batteries, you could recharge it via USB-C. There's also crack systems able to play games directly from a memory card, but more on that later. These options are great until you see a price. I mean, I'm sorry, but I can't justify spending $200 for a Game Boy with a backlit screen and metal case. The market may be there, but I'm not part of it. The original systems work fine as is, but the games are a different story. I found a copy of Pokemon Red one summer day in 2015. It was a bargain bin find, and I wholeheartedly believed it just fell through the cracks until I played it for a full day. I came back the next morning to find my save was gone. The internal battery was dead, meaning if I wanted to enjoy playing through the land of Kanto again, I'd need to get it replaced. The real problem with all of this is time. Game discs aren't going to last forever. You may take good care of your stuff, but others definitely do not do the same. Scratch marks are a staple in the industry. They always have been. I remember GameStop used to have disc buffers in store, but they rarely ever worked. I bought the original Kingdom Hearts used as a kid, and this cheap copy was a mistake. I traveled through the whole game with no hiccups, but then the tiniest of scratches made it to where anytime I tried to fight Dragon Maleficent, my game would freeze. You may be able to buff out some of these cracks, but the original copies aren't going to last forever. So what about the current generation of consoles and services? Maybe they offer a solution? Yeah, sure, I can buff that out. Hey, Virtuafriend, I'll be right back. Have a coffee on me. The PlayStation 2 has over 4,000 games. The GameCube has about 650 games. But sadly, only 60 are available on the PS4, and less than 30 are available on Nintendo's modern console. It's baffling we have like an abundance of stellar games and we'll never see them on first-party services. Microsoft has at least tried to introduce the library of original Xbox 360 and Xbox One games through Game Pass in their cloud system, but it's nowhere near close to the original numbers. Sony does have its catalog of PS2 and PSP games, but I could count them on maybe two hands. I mean, how have we let it get this bad? And what happens if these services are down? Error 37 plopped into my mind when I heard about the outage last month. On Diablo 3's release, May 15, 2012, players received an error message when they rushed to play. The error would pop up due to the high influx of players trying to log on to the servers. All you'd be met with is, servers are busy. Blizzard fans waited 12 years for a new entry in the series, and when they finally had their chance to embark on a new adventure, they were met with estimates of up to 2 weeks for the error to be fixed. I remember buying it on release and forgetting about it because I was waiting so long. Classes started to take their toll, and honestly, I had better things to do than wait around. Another fiasco in 2015 was when the members of the hacking group Lizard Squad shut down PSN, Xbox Live, and an airplane due to bomb threats. This spanned throughout the months of October, November, and again in December. Luckily, the people on board the plane were safe. Most of the games at the time were able to play it offline, so that was good, unlike today. And then again in 2018, PlayStation Network was down, this time for 24 days straight. I remember I was so excited to play Monster Hunter World with my now long-distance best friend, only to be met with the no internet connection available message. When the outage was finally fixed, the experience was so poor, I just chose to keep playing solo. When the network was fully back up and running, all of my progress was suddenly erased. I was forced to start all over, no fault of my own. Game Pass has been pretty enjoyable as a PC and console enthusiast. I can access the entire library through multiple systems and play with ease, for the most part. Cloud saves are an option, but in a few cases, you're limited to who you can play with based on your system of choice. I mean, it's odd. I can have a save on Monster Hunter World between my Xbox and PC via Game Pass, but playing seamlessly with your friends on different platforms, same system like Xbox and Steam, both on PC, it just won't work. The problem with Game Pass isn't necessarily Microsoft games, but EA titles and other like-minded publishers instead. If you go to play Assassin's Creed on PC, for example, you'll need to download the EA app, even though you're accessing it through the Xbox store. This may not seem like a big issue, sure, I can agree with you, but what about if you have saves between PC and your console? Cross-saving doesn't work on EA titles on Game Pass. I was enjoying Need for Speed Unbound and wanted to switch my living room. Well, the 15 or so hours I put on my PC were completely missing. I thought it must have been like an issue syncing, so I went back and started playing on my PC, no problem, The features I paid for monthly were suddenly non-existent. I mean, I could walk like 15 feet down my hall, but my progress just couldn't follow me. To an extent, the cases I described are definitely more dire than others. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you force all your infrastructure and core experiences to be handled online, when one small hiccup occurs, the entire world can fall apart. And did I mention nothing was done in those cases prior? The companies got off scot-free. So those 3 months, for example, that these services may have been down, you were still getting charged for them. A small number of arguments towards online being a necessity for gaming are due to like DRM, piracy, patches, fixes, mitigating hackers, but in all honesty, it's just greed. I go to play Halo and suddenly I see battle passes or kits to purchase. You can't just sit back and relax with a game anymore. As seamless as today's technology is supposed to be, you can't crossplay between most Xbox and PlayStation games due to greed. You can give me a million reasons why this is a good thing, but at the end of the day, publishers are making games like this for a reason. A few months ago, the movement Stop Killing Games began to take shape. Sadly, a majority of games are beginning to be transformed into online-only experiences. The core goal of the campaign is to require video games sold to remain in a working state when support inevitably ends, along with not requiring connections to the publisher once this is done. The caveat being, while the game is being supported, the community shouldn't interfere. Currently, publishers, not studios, are pushing for new titles to be designed to rely on a server under the publisher's control, most being live services. This means if publishers end support for whatever reason, the game is now dead. There's an abundance of cases where the publisher goes out of their way to shut down fans repairing the once dead game by threatening legal action. In most of these cases, it's due to them charging players, but these cases are still threats to fans for non-profit projects. This week, Activision shut down the fan-made project remastering Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer with updated maps, skins, and more. They put the game on sale last week as if it was an incentive for players to check out the fan project. This was a free project, and sadly, it won't see the large scale we thought it'd have. If they cared so much, they should have put remastering multiplayer in the game when they released it. Apparently, Activision struck it down because they were fearful that it would affect Black Ops sales when it came out. But the remaster project was free, so I don't understand that. In the past, 99% of games would work indefinitely. In most cases, if you were unable to connect to a server for online play, you either had peer-to-peer connections, aka hosting a game based off of your internet connection, a LAN connection where anyone connected to the same router can play together, or the ability to play multiplayer games, just against bots. The bots could be trash or adjusted to no-scope you across the map. So, it wasn't the same experience, but you could still play regardless. The goal of Stop Killing Games isn't to force these publishers to keep games on life support forever, but to implement an end-of-life plan. For example, switching these games connection from server to peer-to-peer. It may dilute the overall connection or increase lag between far-off players, but it's still playable. I'm no skilled coder or video game programmer, but the idea seems pretty simple to me. Plus, I'm always for consumer rights, such as the right to repair. Currently, it's a gray area for the day and age in gaming. The Xbox Series S, for example, has no disk drive. All the games you purchase have to be from their storefront. In a few countries, sure, video games are good, so consumer protections apply. Other places like the US, it can be argued you're technically buying the game license to play. The license can be revoked. I understand for a service like Game Pass, you're playing based off a subscription. But when you buy the game outright, it comes off really simple. Pirate Software, aka Thor, recently came out against the campaign. While I don't agree with his takes, I do believe the overall campaign is vague. He makes valid points like it's either impossible to implement an end-of-life plan upfront when making a game, or during the game's original lifespan, aka switching the game from servers to client base. He's also asking exactly what is a playable state for the game, and gives examples like, League of Legends, a multiplayer-only game. He also argues why are we worried about the original Crew game when there's the Crew 2 and the Crew 3 that are still available? He also brings up people making a profit on the game once the original service ends, along with hacks and other game-breaking services. He nitpicks for sure, but I think being specific is where it should really start. I was also recommended a video by Brawhammer reacting to Thor's take. He's a software engineer, so compared to other creators, he's probably more qualified to have an opinion. This is where it cracks and a lot of Thor's arguments show. Switching a game from server to client isn't impossible. Fans reverse engineer games all the time. But regardless, titles like Battlefield 3 will still be playable if publishers' servers go off tomorrow. Hammer's solution for titles like Battlefield 4, which may not be able to play tomorrow if the servers go down, is to simply release the server code, then boom, let the fans handle the rest. I mean, it sounds like leaving a game in reasonably working state to me. Asmongold, the king of all React content, and I had the same viewpoint when it comes to the bottom line. If you stop supporting the game, you really shouldn't have a right to say what happens next. World of Warcraft, for example, fan services technically don't have a right to the game. Fans create classic servers or servers for specific patches or expansions, or even spawn at communities all the time. But if Blizzard comes knocking, then, that's it. Pack it up, because you're done. Now, if Blizzard ends support, but the fans want to host their own servers, I feel like it's up to the fans. If they want to charge for it, there really shouldn't be any stopping the community that, the publisher and developers basically left to die. These fan projects do take time and money. Even though there's a dedicated person who wants to play some obscure title, these passion projects still take a lot of time. And if they want to mod that game or upload a patch to play offline or keep a server, just between them and their friends, they should be able to do that. If you go on Nexus Mods, you find unofficial patches for a multitude of long-forgotten games, produced by long-forgotten fans. Check a few recent Steam reviews for older titles. You'll definitely see what I mean when it comes to fixing outdated games. Yeah, sure, I have an extra PS2 controller. No worries. Have fun playing co-op. Hey, Virtuafriend, I'll be right back. Whew. Now that we're on the same page as far as retro gaming and the current live service projects, my honest opinion is, who cares? I will willingly buy a remastered game like Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2 if it is available and working. I believe it's my consumer right to decide how I play, if the game is unavailable. Whether I'm buying the original Dreamcast version, GameCube copy, or playing the fan project Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst, it's my choice. All of my shelves in my room are filled with VHS tapes, DVDs, games from the PS1, PS2, original Xbox, GameCube, DS, 360, and on and on. I have these backed up on my personal hard drives. And, how I choose to play these, it's my choice. I'm not interfering with anyone's, multiplayer experience. I'm not breaking online services or charging people. I'm enjoying what I paid for and what I choose to collect. Emulation is often seen as two camps of thought. The first being a way to archive and play your media wherever and however you like. The other, being a scapegoat to piracy. You download files from the internet, a website, and then you can play the title or watch a movie without ever spending a penny. I don't necessarily agree with the latter based on current gen games or movies based, on modern applications. For example, if the game I want to play is on Steam, I would rather buy it there than pirate a file. What I do agree with is being able to play Bloodborne on PC. I mean, since From Software won't do it, let the fans accomplish it through their own means. If I can't watch a version of the movie I want, like the assembly cut of Alien 3, then heck yeah, I'll find a copy to stream online. The Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection released back in March, and it's playable now, but at release, it was terrible. I was so excited to play an ultra-wide and not have to worry about additional mods or downloads or discords to properly enjoy multiplayer. Then it released and I ended up refunding it the same night. The game was buggy. The graphics were worse than the Battlefront 2 release on Steam ages ago. People were flying through the map unkillable. It was a disappointment, and the community immediately went back to the original Battlefront 2 on Steam. If the original was taken off of Steam once the collection was released, multiplayer couldn't be accessed, or you couldn't refund it, then I would be in an uproar. Sadly, as dumb as it sounds, this is the standard for a lot of publishers. They force you to move on to a new version of the game, and then you, the consumer, suffer. I may not play Battlefront 2 on Steam a lot, but my copy is still there. At least for now, anyways. There is one reason I prefer emulation compared to old-gen hardware. When I was younger, playing the PlayStation 2, I used to think, the slowdown was in effect a lot of games used. It turns out it was just the PS2 trying to catch up with what was happening on screen. Playing on my PC, though, I can modify the resolution, anti-aliasing, field of view, dead zone, and depth in some cases. I can make my own cloud saves or save to a portable hard drive and carry all my games with me. I don't need to take my PlayStation to another room or friend's house. Fun fact, you can do this all on the Series S and X by setting your console up in developer mode. I will give them one valid reason why remaking games or re-releasing them is difficult or downright impossible. A lot of licensed properties like music choices and IPs are no longer able to be controlled by the developer or the publisher. They were negotiated with an expiration date. Recent example is well-known characters in Fortnite. An older and more well-known example is the old Guitar Hero and Rock Band games. The older titles had loads of songs you played till the end of time. The newer releases had loads of issues with their licenses expiring. I mean, it was controversial even at the time, but you could purchase tracks from, artists like Fleetwood Mac or Alice in Chains. These songs could then be taken down to the licenses expiring. I mean, we have options like, the PC clone hero or now the infamous Fortnite spinoff. But how long are these really going to last? With the terribly named streaming app called Max, the higher-ups were kicking media off the service and then claiming it as a tax write-off. There was a debacle with the new Batgirl movie starring Leslie Grace and Brendan Fraser. It was like allegedly completely finished, but then supposedly Warner Bros. Wasn't happy and canned the entire thing, and then claimed it as a loss and got a tax break from it. That's so stupid, but legally as consumers, there's nothing we can do. A big sore spot for me was the show Infinity Train. I enjoyed the show through the last book. It was a little lackluster, but I still enjoyed it. The themes were mature, the characters grew over time, and honestly, they didn't overstay their welcome. Each book or season was a different character and story. Where is the show now, you may ask? Poof, gone. Removed from Apple TV, Max, Microsoft Store, but in other cases, the show is incomplete. Like if you go to Amazon to purchase it, you may find some of the DVDs or seasons, but good luck finding all 4 of them together. Gives me PTSD, Like I feel like a 90s kid trying to acquire anime all over again. The IP holders could show interest in a remake to the original teams or push it to a new development team, but then there still might be licensing agreements that are no longer contractual. Take the show Daria, for example. The older DVD releases may be true to the source material, but what is available now through streaming apps or most pirate sites is actually the show with now generic tunes, since the rights weren't reacquired. So you'll miss out on songs from like Iggy Pop, Shaggy, LL Cool J, Beck, Veruca Salt, and lots more. People today might not even notice the change, but what about preserving the forms of media that we used to love? One of the most badass commercials growing up for me was this MMO called Fusion Fall from Cartoon Network. Some of your favorite characters, including like Samurai Jack, the Kids Next Door, and Ed, Ed and Eddie, are all fighting aliens trying to take over the world. The game didn't last more than like 2 years. Fans immediately were trying to remaster the game, but then each time Cartoon Network would order a takedown notice. Similar project was brought up for the underground classic Free Realms. Sure, it wasn't amazing by any means, but the project ended up on hiatus due to a legal battle and honestly, lack of volunteers. The backbone to old gems is what the community is capable of doing. If the publisher and IP overlords let the past die for 1 second, we'd get cooler ways to experience older titles all over again. PCSX2 has been a godsend for the gaming community, while the Dolphin emulator was struck down over on Steam as soon as it was shown off to the public. Its PlayStation colleague has gone under the radar, at least for now anyways. It offers constant updates as soon as you boot it up, compared to finding files on your own and trying to duct tape it all together. Trust me, modding is no joke. The coolest part to PCSX2 is what isn't blatantly offered. The biggest complaint I hear from a lot of Armored Core fans is the lack of proper controls on older titles. You would need to use like R1 and L1 to affect the camera angle, similar to like wonky tank controls. Die-hard fans actually implemented files to change the controls to match current gen counterparts. So now the left stick's to move and strafe, and the right stick, changes your aim. People may be willing to give older games a shot now. The other awesome part to the modding scene for retro games is changing the way you play. Not only quality life controls, but different view angles altogether. Zealot Tomato has come up with an awesome addition for Silent Hill 3. He morphed it into a third-person view, similar to Resident Evil 4. And he's been doing this with a lot of other titles as well. While a small number of Twitter incels and toxic mofos call it lifeless, I'm personally more than excited to jump back into the game and try out a new version of it. Teams of fan-led community projects are changing the way we look at not only past games, but future ones like Sky Oblivion, a retelling of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and they're blowing away expectations. I mean, sure, a few of the animations and graphics look outdated, but this is a volunteer group, CES Renewal, and they deserve a lot of praise for sticking through this project. The craziest part is it's going to be 100% free, an entire world to re-experience, entirely made by the love of fans. The other project currently taking the world by storm is Fallout London. It was so huge in scale that Nexus couldn't host it. Luckily, GOG stepped up, and all you need to play is Fallout 4 and the DLC. It's crazy to think that it only took 2 years once announced. These are people stepping up, and with the recent success, they've already stated they're going to make their own for-profit studio, creating more amazing experiences to come. I wish nothing but the best for them. These fans are pushing long hours with tons of trial and error. They're saving capsules in time like old WoW updates, preserving long-dead MMOs, creating quality of life improvements for overlooked titles due to age. They're saving old gems like Infinity Train. They're not doing this for a paycheck, but they're doing this for pure love. They deserve all the respect I can give. I enjoyed Cyberpunk in its unmodded state, but I love it with the 100 or so quality life mods and additions to really bring the city alive. These fans are pushing out updates as soon as an unexpected patch goes live. No one's forcing them to do this as quickly as they are. No one's forcing them to stick with it for months or even years. We always see gaming and media as physical or digital, licensed or owned, current gen or retro, canon or now legends, lost to time. We never think about taking the media in front of us and updating it to the current standard, or keeping it on our hard drives or a server, just in case one day it falls into the dark oblivion of time. I don't want retro storage to go away. I don't want all media I consume to be digitally dictated by massive companies. I'll never tell you to openly pirate their favorite titles. What I will scream to the heavens is this: if it's no longer supported, inaccessible to audiences, or hell, fans just want to try something new, don't bash them for loving what you created it in their own way. If the experience isn't hurting others around them, then who cares? Anyways, Virtuafriend, it's been a long talk, but honestly feels like a long time coming. We'll have to try out these mods sometime soon and see how they feel. I can't wait to see what's in store for us next time. Have a good night.